everyone, welcome back to Sophia's Take. Today, I want to talk about genetic testing and preparing before you start trying to have your baby. I will start off by saying that I am not a doctor, I am not a genetic counselor, I am not an MFM, I am not an OBGYN. I am a woman with dwarfism that's had 3 pregnancies, and that's what I'm basing all of this off of. And a bunch of research that I've done myself for myself. So before my partner and I decided to have a baby, I had a lot of issues with finding an OB that I was truly comfortable with. I am sure that there are many women that have dwarfism that are listening that have had some war stories about spreading their legs at an OBGYN office. I'm talking about like the awkwardness and ableism and the ethics of like medical model of disability and how like people have no idea what dwarfism is. They have no concept of the fact that we can have babies, right? Point is, it's important for you to like your doctor, and it's important for you to trust them and for you to feel comfortable. So make sure that you have an OB that you really like, that is gonna root for you no matter what happens in your future pregnancies. Whether you get pregnant, whether you don't get pregnant, whether you have to use IVF, whether you do IUI, whatever your journey is, right? Make sure that your OBGYN is got your back and is on your side and doesn't like not know about dwarfism. And that doesn't mean every OBGYN knows about dwarfism. They don't know about dwarfism. So what we need to do is some of us need to educate our OBs about dwarfism. You know, just find that person that gives you the right vibe, that makes you feel like you're a whole human being and you're not like just this weird uterus that can't have a baby. Because there are many doctors out there that assume that people like us can't have children. I had an OB once that basically said, oh, no, you don't want dwarfism. You don't want that achondroplasia. And I was like, excuse me, what? I was like, first of all, I don't have achondroplasia. Second of all, that's my people, that's my community you're talking about. Like, I have no problem if my baby has dwarfism. I have no problem with that. That's not an issue for me. Anybody that's listening that has had a baby or has gone through some sort of family planning conversation with their OB has probably experienced something similar. So please share that story in the chat or in the comment section if you would like to. Tell me I'm not alone. Make sure that you prepare and find your dream team. Find the people that are going to cheerlead you on this journey of parenthood and pregnancy, because that's the only way you're gonna get through it. The other thing that I recommend you do before you start conceiving is to get genetically tested. My type of dwarfism is a rare genetic condition called spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita, SEDC for short. It is not the most common type of dwarfism. It is one of the more rarer types. The data that we think we know, I'm not 100% sure is accurate. It might be like 1 in every 100,000 births. Hopefully a genetic person can correct me on that in the comments section. You might know what type of dwarfism you have. That's great. Maybe you were never genetically tested. Maybe your partner's never been genetically tested. We shouldn't be afraid of genetic testing. Genetic testing is basically just something that can give us a lot of information before we have this fetus inside of us, right? My husband and I did genetic testing. We were never genetically tested. We both have dwarfism, but we both did genetic testing in order to understand what were the probabilities of us having a dwarf baby. It turned out 50% SEDC, like me, and 50% average height, like the rest of our families. Our baby was not going to have my partner's type of dwarfism, dystrophic dysplasia, because he has a recessive type of dwarfism, which means that I would have had to have a copy of that recessive gene in order for it to pass. So my son actually has 1 copy of that recessive gene, but he does not have 2 because I didn't have that. The point is that it gives you a lot of information. And in my particular case, I was able to avoid an amniocentesis and a CVS, which is an invasive procedure that genetically tests the fetus. I was able to avoid that because I did genetic testing prior to. Now, there are plenty of couples and people that have to get an amniocentesis because of double dominance, because of the potential of having double of the dominant gene, which could mean that the baby doesn't survive. And in those cases, absolutely, people should know what they're up against. But regardless of whether that might even happen to you, it could still very well be a really, really good idea to get genetically tested before you start conceiving, just so that you have a lot of information up front. Because the likelihood is you'll be asked a lot of questions once you get pregnant. And if you have those answers already, then it just makes things a little bit easier. So those are my 2 tips. Pre-pregnancy, have your dream team, and get genetically tested. I hope that's helpful. I'll see you next time. Make sure you hit that subscribe.